Hi, Dr. Mary Lauder here, and I'd like to speak to you about something that keeps me up at night, and I'm wondering if that happens for you as well. And it's about women, myself included, and cardiovascular disease, and as it relates to our change in life, which is also known as menopause. That creates a time when we're actually extra vulnerable as women, extra vulnerable as a female, because there's hormonal shifts with the drop in estrogen, a change in progesterone, and how cortisol, which is another hormone, comes to the front to be more active in our life. And also vitamin D levels, believe it or not, because that's also technically functioning as a hormone, even though we call it a vitamin. And during this time in our lives, and because menopause indicates change, menopause indicates a transition. We try and biohack menopause, try and maybe anti-age, which I'm not exactly sure what that means. I would vote for more active aging and gracious aging and healthy aging, because I do think aging is a privilege. But you want to do it well, and you want to stay active, and you want to be well, because there's lots to do. But so many things change during that time, not just our hormones and the levels of hormones, but how our body functions. When estrogen drops, there's an increased amount of inflammation that occurs in our body. When progesterone drops, there's a change in how our body makes other hormones. And when cortisol comes to the front, because it does during that time frame, changes in how we eat, or maybe not making changes in how we eat actually changes how we look and how we weigh and how we feel about our bodies. And then that can be exacerbated with stress. And we know that middle age, as we call it, or menopausal time, perimenopause, around menopause, is a time when women have increasing amount of stress. We say, how can it be any more stressful? Well, as we say, it can always get worse, right? But it can be more stressful. You might have family members leaving the nest. You might have aging parents you're caring for. Jobs may change. But also what may change would be your internal drivers. What are your emotions? What are your desires? What are your dreams for your life? And as all those transitions come together, that can be sometimes a sticky wicket. And the thing about heart disease, it's under evaluated, overlooked in women. And we ignore some of the normal symptoms, thinking, well, we're just under a little pressure. We might need to eat better. Maybe our blood pressure's a little bit. Maybe our cholesterol's a little high. Maybe our blood sugar's not quite right. We'll get to that. Well, we can prepare for that by knowing what's going on with some specific testing, and then attending to emotional, spiritual, and soul level needs. And when you do that, you can really engage that time of life, which represents change, that time of life, which represents transition, in a way that is more full, more grounded, and actually quite rewarding. And so it's not just simply, well, my hormones are low, I better get some. It's like, let's understand how the hormones are being metabolized. What puts you at higher risk for either cancers or heart disease, because estrogen is an anti-inflammatory molecule. If cholesterol is going up during that time, sometimes that's because you're not making as much estrogen or progesterone, and so the ingredient that goes into making those molecules is around. And so that's why cholesterol can be driven up, and there's other hormones involved in the monthly cycle that can influence cholesterol levels as well. So understanding that this is a transition and understanding how the hormones are functioning and flowing is something to really get, rather than just saying, well, your cholesterol's up, here's a statin. Well, you have family history, so here's an aspirin. We can really get down to the nitty gritty and see if you make cholesterol too much or if you absorb too much cholesterol. We can see what type of molecules your cholesterol resembles, and if there's extra stickiness, if there's extra inflammation in your blood vessels. And then all of that can get treated even without medication sometimes, mostly without medication. And through lifestyle and some nutritional supplementation and support for your body, We can then progress and keep the body in a state of wellness, keep the body in a state of wholeness, and also support the healing that the body goes through naturally because it has that inherent wisdom. The other thing that can happen is understanding our emotions through that transition in life. And when we do that, boy, that's like amazing stuff. And what changes is you aren't up at night wondering about it. You aren't up at night worried about it. You're actually asleep. You're actually ready to get up and greet the day. You're actually ready to go because you have your mind, your spirit, your soul, and your body all working in the same direction as you go through this transition that we call menopause. And so I'm releasing some blogs here in the next few weeks, social media posts, and a webinar. So I want you to keep an eye out for that. And also look for some testing and product specials coming along to support that. Because I want everybody to get this tested. I want everybody to know where they're at. Knowledge is power. Prevention is truly understanding where you're at, knowing your risks. And risk doesn't mean you're going to get something. Risk means it might just be a little risky. So we need and we can then mitigate those risks. So check out my website, drmarylauder.com. Look for our testing under the shopping section. Look for our products to support that testing, and even consider a consultation. It'd be very, very important for you to know where you're at. And then hopefully, instead of just staying up at night, or if you're seeing this in the middle of the night because you're awake, we've got the answer for you so you can simply roll over and go back to sleep. Take good care, and I look forward to seeing you.